Number 1.
Billie Jean Hall, age 24, disappeared after leaving her Maryland home en route to Florida. She was last seen on March 3, 1985. Billie Jean and a friend left their hometown in Jessup, Maryland on February 28, 1985. They were traveling in a camper. Some sites stated was a Nissan Datsun, while others stated was a 1984 Marago camper. They were headed to Bike Week in Daytona Beach, Florida. According to a friend of the Hall family, Billie Jean and her companion met a man named Aubrey in Virginia, and they traveled together to Brunswick, Georgia. Billie Jean's companion had a disagreement with Aubrey and returned to Maryland on March 3. Although it is not known whether Billie made it to Daytona Beach, her credit cards were used extensively in Florida, although not by her, but by an unknown male. Billie's camper was later found in Aubrey's possession in Cameron, Law. He was questioned and stated that he and Billie had gone to Daytona Beach, where Billie had gone off with someone else. He said that when Billie never returned, he took the camper. Aubrey was charged with stealing the vehicle. I do not know if Billie Jean's companion was male or female, but can only imagine that he or she was not too pleased about the idea of this man they just met traveling with them to Florida. I assume that traveling with them to Florida was his intent, based on the fact that he, with or without Billie, presumably did end up in Florida with Billie's credit cards. Aubrey claimed he'd been with her in Florida as well. It's worth noting that Billie Jean had suffered some brain damage, along with other major injuries, as a result of a prior traffic accident. I've seen no mention of symptoms. However, it's possible that her judgment was impaired. Did Billie Jean ever leave Georgia? Were there any credit card transactions in Florida that were confirmed to be Billie herself? Was the male that was using her credit cards ever identified? Where in Brunswick, Georgia, was Billie last seen? In her camper? In a house? A park? A gas station? When the camper was found, were any of Billie's personal belongings found inside? Anything notable on the bed? Any sign of a struggle? Was there any indication of how long the camper had been in Cameron, Louisiana, a town of 406 people? Due to the extensive injuries Billie had sustained in her auto accident, I'm confident that her remains have not been recovered. A metal plate in her skull, for instance, would stand out. I'm looking at requesting a copy of the court records for the auto theft charge to see if it provides any additional clues. It will be a challenge, though. Cameron, Law is a tiny little town of 300 people. Their public offices don't even have websites.
Number 2.
Pendell Williamson was following the band Grateful Dead around the country when she disappeared. She had been doing that for several years prior to her disappearance. She was last known to be in the vicinity of Cap Street near 16th and 19th Streets in San Francisco, California. Her family has not heard from her since late 1996. She is considered endangered due to her failure to contact them. Pendell Williamson is a former modeling student at the Barbizon Modeling School and has also worked as a registered nurse. She was licensed to practice nursing in Vermont, but has not worked in that profession since 1995, and her Vermont license has since lapsed. She had once been married and has a child, but got involved with drugs and bad company in the early 90s. The last sign of Pendell Williamson is from April 1997, when she arrested for prostitution in San Francisco, California. She never showed up for her court date. One of her friends says she has not seen her since 1998 or 1999. She has been known to travel in and between California, Vermont, Kansas, Oregon, New York and Arizona. She may now be homeless and/or in a methadone program. Pendell Williamson is believed to have spent many nights on the streets of the Tenderloin and Mission areas of San Francisco, and may have stayed at the following San Francisco hotels: the Royan in the 400 block of Valencia Street, the All-Star in the 2700 block of 16th Street, the Eula, and the 16th Street Hotel. She may have worked as a prostitute in the area of 16th and 19th Streets, off Cap Street. Her last known address was in the 300 block of Alice Street in San Francisco, in a hotel room which she and a male friend rented by the week. Pendell Williamson's sister wrote Jack Boken, who is serving prison time for attacking homeless San Francisco prostitutes, and asked if he was involved in Pendell Williamson's case. Boken wrote back and denied having anything to do with the missing woman. He has not been ruled out as a suspect in her disappearance, but there is no evidence to connect him to Pendell Williamson, and he has never been charged in connection with her case. Investigators believe Boken killed some prostitutes who were never identified, but he has not been charged in those cases either. In March 2004, Pendell Williamson's sister, Jacqueline Horn, traveled to San Francisco to search for her in the city's homeless communities. Several people said Pendell Williamson bore a striking resemblance to a local homeless drifter known only as the Crier. The San Francisco Chronicle photographed the crier for a feature on homeless people, and Horn believed the photo resembles her sister, but she could not make a positive identification. A copy of that photograph is posted with this case summary. The crier has not been located or identified. It is unknown if she and Pendell Williamson are the same person. Horn died in February 2006 at age 29. Pendell Williamson's case remains unsolved. Santa Cruz, California authorities are investigating her disappearance.
Number 3.
Raymond Dale Harris, age 20, was last seen in Omaha, Nebraska on November 26, 1971. Raymond Harris married Mary Sudak in Douglas County, Nebraska on October 2, 1971, nearly 2 months prior to Raymond's disappearance. The couple lived with Raymond's father in Omaha, Northeast. The living arrangements were reportedly not going well, and they decided to move out of his father's home. Raymond told his sister that they would be going to her home in Des Moines, Iowa. The couple was driving a 1970s model green four-door Chevrolet. Raymond has never been heard from again. There was heavy snow in the area on the night they left, but searches of the area turned up no evidence of an accident. It was initially believed that both Raymond and Mary were missing, but over time, some occurrences have brought that theory into question. In 1993, 22 years after the couple was last seen, Raymond's sister was contacted by a member of Mary's family. The caller inquired about Raymond's whereabouts, but not about Mary's, which caused her to wonder if Mary's whereabouts were known to her family. Additionally, Raymond's family later learned that Mary Teresa Sudak Harris applied for a Social Security card in January 1972. It's been said that Raymond may have suffered from anxiety and/or depression. He had been discharged from the military on medical grounds. The investigation into Raymond's disappearance has resulted in some unfortunate circumstances. The case changed hands several times due to retirements from the police department. The file on Raymond's disappearance has been lost, and he was mistakenly reported as found in 2005. Raymond's sister has submitted DNA, but has been unable to find out what, if anything, was done with it. Raymond Harris is not anonymous. It is unknown whether law enforcement has attempted to contact Mary or her family to see what they know about Raymond's fate, but it does not appear that any contact has ever been made. Since he reportedly left Omaha with Mary in November 1971, and Mary applied for a Social Security card in January 1972, I think this would be an obvious and critical lead. What location did she use as an address when applying for Social Security? Since Mary's family did not contact Raymond's sister inquiring about his, but not Mary's, whereabouts until 1993, would this imply that they knew where Raymond was until shortly before they contacted her? When was Mary's Social Security number last used? Has Raymond's been used since 1971? Did Raymond and Mary ever divorce? Did they have any children? Have vital records been checked for these things? Why was Raymond mistakenly reported as found in 2005? According to Raymond's sister, law enforcement stated that he had turned himself in, although they later stated that was not true, and it was an error. Could it be that Raymond did turn himself in, but requested that this information not be made public, and someone initially let the cat out of the bag? It is worth noting that Raymond is still listed as missing on the Omaha Crime Stoppers website. I think this case has a very good chance of being solved, if someone who is privy to the necessary records would make the effort to solve it. Raymond has been missing for 42 years, and his family would really like to know that he is okay.
Number 4.
Eileen Hynson, age 19, was last seen in Napa, California on June 1, 1976. Eileen was last seen as she left a resort residence at Lake Berryessa, en route to a bridal party dress fitting in Benicia, California. She resided with her father and brother at the time, and left her suitcase in the residence. She has never been heard from again. Note: name states she was on her way to a wedding, as opposed to a bridal fitting. Information on this case is scant, as there is no indication given of how she intended to get to Benicia. Did she have her own car, or access to a family car, that she was to drive to Benicia? Was someone she knew supposed to pick her up? Was she planning to hitchhike? Although it is mentioned that she left her suitcase behind, it is not clear whether it had been expected that she take her suitcase with her to Benicia. That is how I initially took it, which would mean that she hadn't actually left for the bridal fitting yet, since she didn't have her suitcase with her. It could also mean that while she wasn't expected to take it with her to the bridal fitting, the fact that she didn't take it with her would indicate that she planned to return to Lake Berryessa that same day. Either way, the idea that she would have disappeared of her own accord seems unlikely. There has been some speculation that Eileen could be the unidentified Santa Rosa hitchhiker victim that was located northeast of Santa Rosa in 1979. This unidentified victim, as of yet, has not been entered into NamUs, and I'm not sure why. A web sleuther inquired about her being placed into NamUs about 2 years ago, and was told it was being looked into. The unidentified Caucasian woman was said to be approximately 19 years old, 5'33", auburn or brown hair, and wore contact lenses. She also had a healed rib fracture. Their guess of the year of death was 1972 to 1974, although 1976 may still be a possibility. I would like to find out if Eileen was hitchhiking, and if she wore contact lenses and/or had any rib fractures. Due to the proximity of the remains in comparison with other victims of the Santa Rosa hitchhiker killer, authorities are fairly certain that this UID was also a victim of the same person. Lots of information about the Santa Rosa hitchhiker murders can be found here. If it were found that Eileen is a match to the unidentified victim, Ted Bundy could be ruled out as the hitchhiker killer, as he was incarcerated when Eileen went missing. I haven't done extensive research on the Zodiac killer, but I do recall that he tended to strike at night, when there was a full moon. The day that Eileen disappeared, there was only a 9% sliver of a moon, and I believe she would have left the residence during daylight. It's worth noting that the Santa Rosa hitchhiker killer's known victims were from the Santa Rosa area. Although Napa, Lake Berryessa, is not terribly far from Santa Rosa, there would be no reason why Eileen would pass through Santa Rosa on the way to Benicia. The route would, however, have taken her for quite a ways down what appears to be a winding, treacherous mountain road, with nothing around for miles. I think finding out how she intended to get to Benicia is important, and I am hopeful that someone who remembers the event can shine some light on this. Eileen deserves to be found.
Number 5.
Sylvia Alice Lwowski, age 22, disappeared from Staten Island, New York on September 6, 1975. She had planned on going to see a movie at the Island Theater on Richmond Avenue, with her fiancé. At the time, movies such as Jaws and Rocky Horror Picture Show would have been showing. Reports state that she left for her movie date and never returned. Her fiancé would later state that he and Sylvia had argued, which resulted in Sylvia throwing her eyeglasses at the dashboard and running from the car. There is very little official information available on this case. A good friend of Sylvia's has come forward to discuss her disappearance, under certain expectations of anonymity. For the purpose of this blog entry, I'll call her Lauren. Lauren had been with Sylvia earlier in the day that she disappeared. They had gone shopping, and at roughly 4 p.m., Lauren dropped Sylvia off at home, so she could get ready for her date. Sylvia seemed to be in good spirits, and was looking forward to going to the movies. In the early evening, Sylvia's fiancé picked her up as scheduled, and they drove off, presumably headed to the movie theater, which was about 10 minutes from her home. At approximately 10 p.m. that night, Sylvia's fiancé appeared in front of Lauren's home. He rolled down his window, and angrily stated that he and Sylvia had gotten into an argument, and that she'd gotten out of the car near the Staten Island Mall, telling him she'd take the bus home. He asked Lauren to pick Sylvia up at the bus stop, before abruptly driving away. Lauren and her father drove around the vicinity of the mall, but did not see any sign of Sylvia. At this point, they assumed that she'd gotten on a bus during time that it took them to get there. They returned home. At approximately 10:30 p.m., Sylvia's fiancé arrived at Sylvia's home, and spoke with her family about the fact that Sylvia had gotten out of the car. Sylvia's mother quickly headed for the Staten Island Mall area, and drove around without locating her. She attempted to file a missing persons report, but was told that she needed wait until Sylvia had been missing for 24 hours. After filing a missing persons report the following day, the Wowski family found that the case was being handled as nothing more than a voluntary missing adult case. A couple weeks after Sylvia's disappearance, Sylvia's mother hired a private investigator. We do not know the identity of this investigator, but Lauren and Sylvia's surviving family would be interested in speaking with him. If anyone has access to Staten Island Yellow Pages from 1975 and can scan a copy of the private investigator category, I'd be grateful. Lauren contacted Sylvia's fiancé by phone on a couple occasions following her disappearance, and was told never to call him again. He was completely unwilling to answer any questions. It is not known if he was ever questioned by law enforcement. The only other potential clue that has surfaced is that Lauren had given someone a ride home from Manhattan some time after Sylvia's disappearance, and it turned out that this individual was acquainted with Sylvia's fiancé. This individual stated to Lauren that Sylvia's fiancé had her engagement ring in his possession. According to the police report, the ring was missing along with Sylvia. There is much speculation that Sylvia's fiancé knows something about her disappearance, and there is doubt as to whether they ever went to a movie at all that night. If it is true that her fiancé had the ring, it would imply that either there was a breakup, as opposed to just an argument, or that the ring was retrieved at a later time. There is a possibility that Sylvia did return the ring during an argument, threw her glasses at the dash, and exited the car, only to fall prey to serial killer Andre Rand. The location where Sylvia was last known to be is in the scope of Rand's comfort zone. I find it unlikely, however, because Rand preferred young children, or those with mental disabilities who he perceived as vulnerable. He was reportedly rather standoffish with other adults. If Sylvia's fiancé did harm her, I find it unlikely that it happened on Richmond Avenue, near the Staten Island Mall. It's a busy area, and a commotion would have been noticed. It would be more likely that they were never near the mall, and instead went to a hotel or a lover's lane where an altercation occurred. Otherwise, I'd have to think it was premeditated, meaning that from the mall, he'd made up his mind that he was going to harm her, and drove her someplace secluded. It's also worth noting that the movie theater was approximately 10 minutes from Sylvia's home. An average movie is 90 minutes, plus 20 to 30 minutes accounted for in drive time. That still leaves 2 to 3 hours. Sylvia had been picked up between 5 to 6 p.m., and her fiancé appeared at Lauren's house at 10 p.m. Sylvia is a native of Germany, but had been in New York for most of her life. Her parents have both passed away without ever learning their daughter's fate. Sylvia's mother kept all of Sylvia's engagement gifts in the hope that she would someday return. Sylvia loved animals, gardening, and collecting seashells. She was a member of the Wagner College Band.